Good day to you all, and welcome to the another audio edition of the Common Constitutionalist podcast, or weekend podcast. And yes, this is another audio edition. Don't even ask. But I've got one topic and one topic only today, and it's going to be breaking down the Florida school shooting. Yes, indeedy. That should be a fun topic, and we'll talk about that today on the Common Constitutionalist.
You are listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black helicopters.
Okay, welcome back. Again, I am Brent Smith. I am the Common Constitutionalist, and we're going to be breaking down the Florida school shooting. And I think enough time has passed that I can kind of speak frankly about this, so here we go. So the Florida school shooter was Nickolas Cruz. And gee, maybe he's related to Ted Cruz, because you know how evil that guy is. No, but seriously. So Cruz gets dropped off at the school, at this Florida high school, by an Uber driver. Now, how bad does this guy feel? Honestly, excuse my language, wouldn't that suck? I know it's just a weird twist of fate that this particular driver just happened to pick up Cruz and all, but can you imagine the guilt that this guy or girl is stuck with, feeling for the rest of his life, knowing that they were the ones that transported this piece of human debris to the school? I mean, honestly, that stinks, man. All right, so Cruz gets dropped off. He then apparently just walks into the school. Evidently, there's no locks, there's no intercom, there's no security, there's no nothing. But I'll get to more of that in a bit. Now, if I wanted to walk into any of my kids' schools over the years, I had to buzz the intercom. I had to sometimes even present my ID if it was one of those video things. Otherwise, I wouldn't get in, period. There's no way you're not getting in. And these doors are pretty substantial, so you ain't breaking them down. Probably couldn't even shoot them out. But, I mean, if you started shooting, then the gig is up now, kinda, isn't it? And so Cruz wouldn't have gotten in either. And he was also well known there, and not in a good way. They would have recognized him and then denied him entry, absolutely, for sure. And how do I know? Well, because on his way in, reports are that one of the school staff recognized Cruz and warned a coworker by radio. So after Cruz is in, he apparently goes to a second-floor bathroom to load his rifle or something like that. And while he's in there, a 15-year-old student sees him, and Cruz evidently tells the kid, quote, "You better get out of here. Things are going to start getting messy," unquote. Yeah. I mean, I'm a 50-year-old kid. I walk into a bathroom and there's a guy loading weapons or a weapon and tells me that, man, I'm hightailing it, brother. So this was like around 2:20 in the afternoon. If I think it was USA Today or something like that had a chronology of this with estimated times, and they say it was about 2:20 in the afternoon. And a minute later, about 2:21, Cruz comes out of the bathroom, pulls a fire alarm, and starts gunning kids down as they exit their classrooms. Now, this is important. Less than 5 minutes later, the shooting just stops. He's done. He's finished. He chucks his stuff in a stairwell and runs down the stairs to the frenzy of students fleeing the school. He blends into the crowd and he leaves. And this was around 2:25 p.m. And apparently 2 minutes earlier, around 2:23, the school called in to 911. And according to records, the Broward County Sheriff's Office is responding to the call. It is now 2:53, not 2:25, not 2:23, but 2:53. Broward County Sheriff tweets basically to that effect. The tweet doesn't say that they're on the scene, just that they're responding. And now that's 28 minutes between the time the shooting stopped, between the time the shooter finished his evil deed and a police response. 28 minutes. Now, I'm not making a judgment one way or the other. I'm just stating facts here, folks. And then Cruz was finally caught at, I don't know, it was outside of McDonald's or something like that, or down an alleyway or something like that about 45 minutes later. That's kind of immaterial at this point because it was 45 minutes later. So, bottom line, the entire shooting incident, the entire rampage with 17 kids dead, or people dead, took no more than 5 minutes. And Cruz evidently didn't even try to hide his identity or anything. The Chicago Tribune wrote that if Cruz, quote, was trying to disguise himself as a student, it didn't work. He was too well known as Douglas, where staffers had been warned that the troubled former student could someday potentially pose a risk. A staffer recognized him instantly and radioed to warn a coworker, unquote. So everybody at the school knew this kid was a risk. So this jackweed deputy sheriff or something like that, who's basically just a politician in a sheriff's suit, or was anyway, comes up with all these excuses as to why this kid wasn't caught ahead of time, wasn't at least questioned, there was no red flags waved by Broward County Sheriff's Office, but yet everybody knew this kid was a potential risk, so to speak. And the Tribune continues writing that, quote, a few seconds later, the same worker heard gunshots. Code red, he radioed, an all-out emergency call meant to trigger a campus lockdown, unquote. And obviously it wasn't just a few seconds because Cruz had to get into the building and walk up to the second floor bathroom, but still, so it was a minute or two, whoop-de-doo. So this worker or staffer whomever it was had a radio. Well, that's great. And the radio call accomplished exactly nothing. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back.
You're listening to The Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
All right, so welcome back. Now, just before the break, I said basically that the staffer or the worker, or whatever they call him, had this radio, and he warned that there's a code red and blah blah blah. And basically, like I said, that did absolutely nothing because the worker had already heard the gunshots. So by the time they instituted the code red lockdown, it was kind of too late. But what if the same staffer had a concealed weapon? Now, he or she had already recognized Cruz as a threat, right? That's been established. We know Cruz was effectively unarmed as he had all his crap zippered up in one long bag and a backpack. And why was he effectively unarmed? Well, gee whiz, that one's an easy question to answer. He didn't have to worry about being at the ready, basically, because he knew that he was walking into a soft target environment. He knew no one would be armed because no one is allowed to be. The school, of course, like almost all schools, is a gun-free zone, don't you know? But Cruz had guns. That's right. Old Nickolas Cruz had guns. Whether he got them legally, illegally, or otherwise, he had guns. You know why? Because Cruz is a piece of crap criminal murderer, and criminal murderers don't give a crap about laws or rules. That's what makes them freaking criminals and murderers. Duh. But the Tribune also wrote, kind of laughable, tell you the truth, but they also wrote, seriously I guess, that, quote, if the students felt safe, it was because they were prepared. Prepared what? Prepared to get gunned down? Yeah, great. There was an armed police officer on campus. An armed, which means one armed police officer. If you've seen aerial pictures of this campus, it's pretty big, and they got one armed police officer. That's terrific. But great, it gets better, though. The students had also practiced, what did they practice again? Oh, yeah, how to deal with an active shooter. Well, how do you deal with an active shooter? Yes, what you do is you huddle in a classroom and wait to be slaughtered. That's how, apparently, these people deal with an active shooter. And can we say, wow, shall we? One armed police officer, like I said, on a campus this side. So once again, we're seeing liberalism, leftism on parade. It's symbolism over substance. We have an armed guard on campus. One armed guard, he can't be everywhere. And as we'll see, he wasn't anywhere. In a minute, we'll see that. But as he's an armed officer, peace officer, or whatever they want to call this thing, I think they call him a resource officer, but basically he's an armed police officer. So he's going to be easy to spot and therefore, easy to avoid. That's right. It's the oldest infiltration technique in the book. Just avoid the obvious threat. Freaking, again. Okay, now next thing, according to CNN, yes, I'm quoting CNN. They've got a good point here, and it's a factual point. When the local cops, the Coral Springs police, arrived at the high school, when they got there, quote, they were surprised to find not only that the Broward County Sheriff's Deputy Scott Peterson, the armed school resource officer, the one cop on campus, had not entered the building, but there were 3 other Broward County Sheriff's deputies who were all outside the school, and not one of them had entered the building during the shooting. Not one. The deputies had their pistols drawn and were hunkered down behind their vehicles, the sources said, and not one of them had gone into the school, unquote. Well, that's just the most ridiculous and cowardly thing I've ever heard in my freaking life. These armed Broward County Sheriff's people are just, it's like it's some sort of stupid Hollywood cheesy movie or something where the cops roll up and they all stand behind their cars and they pull out shotguns and handguns and they stand behind their cars and whip them out and aim them at a building, at nothing in particular, like that's going to do any good. So these folks, if I may, these folks are your first responders. They're your freaking sheepdogs, hiding behind their car while innocent children and adults get slaughtered inside the school. There's your first responders. There are your brave sheepdogs. Holy crap. And CNN continues. This is a pretty scathing report for CNN, I gotta tell you. Quote, some Coral Springs police were stunned and upset that the 4 original Broward County Sheriff's deputies who were first on the scene did not appear to join the Coral Springs Police Department as they entered the school. So not only did the Broward County Sheriff's people, the 4 of them, didn't even enter the building in the beginning, they didn't even have the courage to follow the Coral Springs police into the building after the fact. It's phenomenal. And to this Broward County resource officer, the deputy county sheriff's resource officer that was on the campus, his name was Scott Peterson, and President Trump even called Peterson a coward, of which, of course, he is, or was. I think he got let go. Good luck finding a job, meat. Even a mall cop. But yet so were the other 3. I'm sure if you got pulled over on the side of the road and got a speeding ticket, I'm sure they'd be real intimidating and tough looking or something. Or you parked in front of a fire hydrant for 5 seconds, I'm sure they'd jump out of their car and read you the freaking riot act. But when real danger arises, they go hide behind their cars. That's so pathetic, I can't even stand it. But sad to say, in retrospect, it wouldn't have made any difference anyway, because, as I said, the whole thing was over in 5 minutes, which happens in about 99.999% of these shootings. They're all over before the cops even arrive. And that's why President Trump wants teachers and other staff to be trained to carry and handle a weapon and how to properly respond and eliminate an active shooter. Duh. I mean, this is just so common sense. But then again, we're talking liberals here. We're talking leftists. And Trump is 100% right. And he, like me, and like most reasonable people, doesn't mean all teachers, all administrators, the principal, the vice principal, the janitor got an AK or something. No, that's not going to happen. Just some would volunteer, would be trained. Oh, they might be trained by the NRA. Perish the thought. Oh, and oops, I need to take another quick break here. Catch my breath, and I'll be right back. You're listening to me, the Common Constitutionalist.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
All right, so welcome back again. And this is the final segment. Wow, this is actually going to be a relatively short podcast. You won't have me droning on for a half an hour or so. So before the break, I was talking about that Trump wants to arm the teachers and other staff and have them get professionally trained to how to handle a weapon, how to carry a weapon, how to present a weapon, how to eliminate an active shooter safely, and so on and so, or as safe as you can eliminate an active shooter. And that not all of them would be, but some of them would be, and they would all concealed carry, so you wouldn't know, you couldn't tell who is and who isn't armed, which is the whole point. Oh, and he also wants them to get a bonus. He wants them to be paid more, and I 100% agree with that, because these guys are going to be the real first responders. And don't get me wrong here. I'm not blaming, particularly the Coral Springs police. These guys did an admirable job, but the police can't be everywhere at all times. And depending on where they are, when they get the call to go, they go as rapidly as they can go. But they could be, a mile or so away or 2 miles away, fighting traffic, who knows, and it could take minutes and minutes and minutes to get there. And as we've already established, most active shootings are done within a matter of a few minutes, and then they're done. And then I also established that Trump wants the volunteers, the concealed carry volunteers in the school, to be paid more, to get some sort of bonus or stipend or something like that. And obviously they'll have their training paid for, their weapon paid for, their ammunition paid for, their further training, operator training. Well, not operator, you know what I mean. And good on Trump for suggesting this. This is good, and to stick with his guns. Pardon the pun. So if you're a regular reader of mine, or a regular podcast listener, or occasional watcher, because I haven't been able to do video podcasts in a while, you know that I carry my sidearm, but I do so openly, and I do that on purpose. It's never concealed unless, a jacket or something I'm wearing happens to fall over it by mistake or whatever. And I want to carry it openly in my particular case, because I want people to see that I am armed, and not to mess with me or anyone within my, say, circle of influence, for lack of a better term. So I want those with any kind of ill intent to avoid me and anyone I'm with and anyone around me. And that, to me, is that's just the way I want to do it. But this is completely different. You cannot be an open carry person in a school. I mean, obviously, for obvious reasons, it'll freak some of the kids out and whatever. But it's also, you don't want to tip your hand to any potential threat. And if you're an open carry, they either know who to take out first, or they know who to avoid. And so, duh. But as much as the president makes sense, as much as this whole thing makes sense, to arm volunteers, pay them a little bit more, whatever happens, get them the training, whatever it happens to be, and keep them continually trained and practiced, because you have to do that. It ain't like riding a bike, folks. No, it's just not. I was going to say in some cases it kind of is, because you develop muscle memory and it just kicks in. Under threat, it kicks in. But you still have to practice. But unfortunately, because of the environment and because of all the liberals that control the schools and the Department of Education and all that other nonsense, I just don't think this is going to happen. There's just too many girly liberals with such an irrational fear of an inanimate object that no matter how logical the argument for actual armed first responders, I don't think they're going to allow it, and that's sad. And to be honest with you, to me, it just shows how much they don't care about really helping and protecting the children. That's it. So that's about all I've got. This is Brent Smith. I'm the Common Constitutionalist signing off. Y'all have the blessed balance of the weekend. And that's it. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Common Constitutionalist Weekly Podcast.